So idols are important for us to neglect and leave them and trust only in the Lord. And here's the reason. God's going to remind his people that he's real. God is for real. He's not like the idols. What I love about Scripture is that God taunts the idols around Israel all the time. He makes fun of them on purpose because they don't actually exist. They can't defend themselves. You know, I used to always, when I'm picking on somebody, one of my friends or something, and they're not in the room, and then somebody reminds me and they say, hey, they're not here to defend themselves. And I go, oh man, I should be a lot nicer and wait until they get here to defend themselves. And the idols couldn't do that. God could lay a charge against them and say, hey, you're not alive. And it's not like they're living and can say, yeah, of course I'm alive. I'll prove it. Here, I'll do this. The idols were nothing. They were figments, if you will, in the imaginations of the Canaanites and the Philistines and all those around them. And the Bible makes every pot shot that it can about the idols because they're not real and they can't defend themselves. And that actually becomes part of the reason why God is the true God. Because God will speak back to his people. God will respond to his people. He is a living being. And the idols, are not. And so God is real. And I want to read our section for today in Deuteronomy. And we find it in Deuteronomy 4:32 through 40. Moses reminds the people, he says, "For ask now of the days that are past, which were before you, since the day that God created man on the earth, and ask from one end of heaven to the other, whether such a great thing as this has ever happened or was ever heard of. Did any people ever hear the voice of a God speaking out of the midst of the fire, as you have heard, and still live? Or has any God ever attempted to go and take a nation for himself from the midst of another nation, by trials, by signs, by wonders, and by war, by a mighty hand and an outstretched arm, and by great deeds of terror, all of which the Lord your God did for you in Egypt before your eyes? To you it was shown that you might know that the Lord is God. There is no other besides him. Out of heaven he let you hear his voice, that he might discipline you. And on earth he let you see his great fire. And you heard his words out of the midst of the fire. And because he loved your fathers, and chose their offspring after them, and brought you out of Egypt with his own presence by his great power, driving out before you nations greater and mightier than you, to bring you in, to give you their land for an inheritance, as it is this day. Know therefore today, and lay it to your heart, that the Lord is God in heaven above and on the earth beneath. There is no other. Therefore you shall keep his statutes and his commandments, which I command you today, that it may go well with you and with your children after you, and that you may prolong your days in the land that the Lord your God is giving you for all time." This passage reminds us that our God is real. Our God is strong. Our God is great. Our God is unlike the other gods that other people have, because our God comes through for us. He is faithful. He is living. He is active. And I can prove it by evidence. The evidence of my answered prayers. The evidences of his healing, his salvation, his grace. All of it I can prove. An idolater can't prove that their idol is real. They can fashion them with their own hands, but that doesn't make them greater than them. In fact, it makes them less than them. They can talk about something that they don't understand and call it God, but it can't do anything for them. It can't answer their prayers. It can't respond to them. My God spoke his word. My God took people from one nation, Egypt, and brought them into their own land. My God is real. And we need to remember that God is real. And we need to respond to him because he is real. The commands teach us that God is real. And beyond that, we look at the last couple of sections of chapter 4, and we focus on the cities of refuge and the introduction to the Decalogue, or the Ten Commandments.